Hello and welcome to my studio. In this video I'm going to show you how I made this image. Making objects float is a relatively simple technique. This image was created from two separate captures. They were then combined in post-production to form the finished picture. And in this video I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. Okay, so I'm going to start with the background, which is this piece of grey mount board. It's just a piece of grey card really, and I've just put a couple of clips along the top so that I can hang it on this C-stand. So just slip this on here, like that. Now that's going to form the background to our image. Now the foreground is made up of a wooden board, which I've got here. And on this wooden board, I have hot glue melted a boss, aluminium boss. And by doing that, I can now mount this on the top of a lighting stand. So here's a lighting stand. Now most lighting stands do have this threaded adapter on the top of them. If not, you can actually buy them as separate items. So all I need to do is just screw this to the bottom of the board, like so. There we go. So with that screwed on, I can just place this down here, and that will form the platform for our subject. Now the subject is some garlic, and what I've done is got some bulbs of garlic here. I've got one which is just a full bulb, and some which have been broken open. So we'll just place these on here just to form the rest of the image. Now this video is mostly about the technique of making things float as opposed to how to arrange bulbs of garlic, but you get the idea. And I'll just add a few little extra pieces there just for some added interest. Okay, so that's our subject. So the next thing would be the camera. And as usual, I'm using a full frame digital SLR with a 24-70 zoom lens on the front of it, flash sync trigger on the top, and the camera is tethered into Capture One software. That way it's easy to see the results as we go along. So I'll just pop this on this tripod, like that. Now the whole idea of this is to place this in such a position as the background there, the piece of card, will fully fill the frame. So what I'll do is look through the viewfinder and just frame up the image. So the first thing I'll do is just zoom that in all the way to 70mm. And that should fill the frame with the card in the background. Now it may need just adjusting ever so slightly, so this is where a geared head comes in handy. I can just precisely align the camera like so. Okay, finally we'll just check the focus. Yep, that looks okay. Alright, so with all that done, next thing to do would be to turn the camera on, like so. And the software has recognized the camera, and here we can see all the settings that are on the camera at the moment. So it's in full manual mode. I have a shutter speed of 1/250th of a second, which is the flash sync speed for that camera, ISO 100, and I've set an aperture of f8. So with all those settings and no flash set, what I'll do is just capture an image just to check that we haven't got any contamination from the house lights. And there you go. So that's fine. That just guarantees that any light we add now with flash will be the only light which is affecting the image. Okay, so the first thing that I actually want to set up is the glow on the background. if you look at the original image, it had a green glow in it. Now that was achieved by using a light with a green filter in the front of it. So just to get this in something like the right position, what I'm going to do is just place this in here so it's relatively close to the subject, but it's pointing at the background. Okay, so to set it up, I'm actually just going to do it without any filters on, and then we'll put a filter on once I've got the exposure about right. Okay, so with that there, what I'll do is just turn that head on. So we'll just select the head from the sync trigger on the top of the camera here and just turn that on. Like that. So at an arbitrary energy level, what I'll do is capture an image and then we should be able to set the energy properly for exposure. Okay, so from this capture you can see that we're getting a gradient here, but overall I think the background is a little bright. So what I might do is just take one stop off that energy just to make it a little dimmer. So we'll take one stop off and just see what that looks like. There we are, that's looking a little better. The gradient is a bit more defined now. It's possibly still a little bright, but once I add the green filter, then that's going to take some energy out as well. So that's the next thing to do, really. Okay, so this is a Lee Filters 139, which is just a pure green, and I'm just going to clip that to the front of the light, like that. And we'll grab another image. There we are, that seems to have worked. I think the green filter has possibly taken perhaps a little too much energy out, so I'm just going to add half a stop just to compensate. There we go, and we'll just grab that again. Yeah, so that's the sort of thing that I wanted. Okay, so with that now done, the next thing to do is to set the main light. So for the main light, what I've got is this Profoto D2 with a 2 foot by 2 foot softbox on the top of it, and the whole thing is on this boom arm on this C stand. So I'm just going to take this up in the air a little bit, something like that, and we'll get this somewhere close to being in position, like this. Now once I've got it in position, because this is getting quite high, what I'm going to do is just put a sandbag on the leg of the stand here, just to make everything a little more stable, like so. Okay, so with that on, very roughly in the right place possibly, we'll just check that that's not actually in the picture, which it isn't. Now as I've got it set at the moment, most of the light is behind the subject, and that's possibly not where I want it to be. So what I'm going to do is actually just feather this off a little. So I'm just going to tilt the whole thing forwards, just like that. There we go. And again, just make sure that it's not in the picture, which it isn't. Good. So with this in this sort of position, what I'll do, again, just with an arbitrary energy level, we'll just turn that head on, which we can do from the remote here, like that, and we'll just grab a picture. And there we go, really, straight out of the blocks there. I think that exposure is pretty good. What I might do is just zoom in, and we'll just have a little look and just check the focus. Yeah, that looks all fine to me. Excellent. Okay, so that is our image. But as you can see from the capture here, we still have the stand in the picture here. Now, in order to get rid of that, what I need to do is make a blank slate, which is basically just the background without the foreground. Now, I'm using these Profoto studio lights, which are very consistent. Every time you get a flash, they will give you exactly the same energy. Now, if you're trying this at home with a flash gun or speedlight or something similar, the chances are they won't always be exactly the same. So it's always a good idea to take more than one image. So at the moment I just have one of these images with the foreground and the background. So I'm just going to grab another one, like so. And having captured those two, what I'll do now is very carefully remove the foreground subject, and now I'll grab a couple of images of the background. There we go. As I said before, just for consistency really, I'll grab more than one image, like so. Okay, so now with those two images captured, what I'll do is go into Photoshop and do the post-production. Okay, so here we are in Photoshop, and I've loaded up the 4 images. So that's 2 of the foreground, like this, and 2 of the background, like this. Now I've got 2 of each, just for insurance really, in case there's a problem with any single one of them. So what I'm going to do is just make a stack of all these images. So go to File, down to Scripts, down to Load Files into Stack, ask it to add the open files, and just click on OK. And there we go, Photoshop has made a stack of all these images and placed them all on a separate layer. So I can turn off one at a time just to see what we get. And you can see that they are quite consistent. There's no huge change in colour between the two, which is what we want. Okay, so having done that, I can now dispense with this top one. Don't really need that one. And dispense with the bottom one, like so. So that just leaves me with these 2 layers. So in order to make this float, what I'm going to do is just add a mask to this layer so I can paint out the stem, revealing the layer which is underneath, which is just the plain background. So with this top layer selected, just add a mask like so, and then just make sure that black is selected as the foreground colour. Find a paintbrush. Now, I think the paintbrush needs to be reasonably hard and of a reasonable size, like so. So what we can do now is just paint this through, like that, and that just gets rid of the stem. Now to do the bit where it's near the board, I'm actually just going to zoom in quite a long way, like so. So that's at 100%. And what I can do now is just go back to the paintbrush, and I'll place the paintbrush right on the very edge near where the wood is, and just click the mouse once, like so, and then holding down the Shift key, which will give you a straight line between the first point which you've just loaded and the new point here. I can just click the mouse again, and there you go. It will just make a straight line and get rid of everything in between. And now we can just get rid of the last bit like that. Okay. Now I'll just zoom back out again. And there it is. That's our floating image. So it just remains to select a crop. So just go to the crop tool. Once again, I'm using this for video, so I'll just use 16:9. And I might just move that up slightly in the image like so. But apart from that, I don't think it needs anything else doing to it. So there we have it. And that's how I would make a fully floating object. It's a fairly simple technique, but as you can see, quite powerful. And I think that's turned out rather well. Okay, well I hope you liked watching how I made that image, and if you like watching these sort of things, do click on the other images as they appear, and don't forget to subscribe. Oh, and click the like button. Thank you very much for watching.